What is going on, guys? It's Kitten of Doom, and today we are going to be going over the Morrigan and how I play and built her in Season 4. And we are going to start off with her passive, which is called Doomsayer. The third hit of Morrigan's hit chain will explode, dealing damage to all enemies within range and dooming all enemies hit. Doomed enemies will take additional basic attack damage over time. And the damage is 9% of the target's max HP, and it lasts for 3 seconds. And I'm going to show you what the passive looks like right now. So the passive hits on the third basic attack. So here's 1, 2, and 3. And then you see those little ticks that tick for 3 times. So the passive is pretty nice because sometimes you can, be getting someone really low and then apply that, and then the tick damage actually is the thing that kills them. So it's definitely, I think, an underrated passive, but the ticks can be mitigated from things like Mark of the Vanguard or other kind of defenses, so just keep that in mind and never really build her auto attack base just because of that. Her first ability is called Deadly Aspects. When activated, the Morrigan begins combining the power from all 3 of her forms. When activated again, they simultaneously damage and stun enemies in front of them. Damage scales from 80 to 300 plus 80% of your magical power, and the stun is always for 1 second, and cooldown is 12 seconds. So her first ability looks like this. There's 2 other forms that come out, and she can keep this channeled for as long as she wants, or be really annoying, and keep doing this. And to cast it again, you just need to, press your trigger and it applies. So I think it can be pretty annoying with this if you want to hurry and put that stun onto a target, but always just keep in mind what the cast time is on that and you should be okay. But it is a very powerful stun and it hurts quite a lot, so pretty good ability on her. Second ability is called Dark Omen. Morrigan launches a wave of dark magic at her enemies that deals bonus damage to minions, and applies an omen to enemy gods for 8 seconds. Gods with an omen will take bonus damage for the next time they are hit by a damaging ability. Initial damage is 40, scaling up to 160 plus 40% of your magical power. And range is 70, cooldown 7 seconds. So this is what her second ability looks like. Just a normal ranged attack. And when it applies, you can see that little time glass over them. That is the omen. And while they have that omen over their head, gods who are affected by that will take double damage from either your abilities or your allies' abilities. So this can be a pretty powerful ability just to keep hitting on everyone, just so that they take a bunch of bonus damage. And you definitely want to level Dark Omen first, just for the wave clear. It's just safe wave clear instead of, going all the way up to the minion wave and just hitting it with your 1, which isn't really that smart. And you do want to max this ability first, just because the cooldown is lower than Deadly Aspects, and you just get the Dark Omen's just better for team fights. Just applying this and having, you or your allies hit them with abilities is just better in my opinion, since the cooldown's lower. And third ability is Confusion. The Morrigan creates a phantom of herself when becoming stealthed and increasing her movement speed. The phantom runs to a targeted area, deals no damage, and will die if it takes any damage. If the Morrigan attacks or takes damage, she will be revealed and lose her increased movement speed. Duration scales up from 4 to 8 seconds, and cooldown's 15 seconds. Movement speed also scales up from 20 to 40% as you level this ability. And I have this ability on Quick Cast, just because, if you're in a tight situation, you just press 1 button and you're in stealth. And this can be a pretty good ability for getting away or initiating. So you always want to try and trick your opponent and, you know, go the other way, or you can even use this to initiate. I like using it to sneak up on someone, use my 1 and then my 2, and they're just caught off guard. So it can be a really good ability, but it isn't the best escape in the world, just because if they do predict where you are the moment you cast it, you can just be revealed, and then you don't even gain the movement speed, and then you can be caught in a really bad position. With some cooldowns though, this can be used pretty often. So I'm still in stealth for a long time, and then once I come out of stealth, the cooldown's only 3 more seconds. So this can be used a lot, but just be careful on where and when you use this. Her ultimate is called Changeling. And the Morrigan selects a god from the current match and becomes a copy of them and cleanses herself from all effects. She copies all of their current stats and may use all of their abilities for the duration. She retains her own relics and cannot use consumables. The rank of her abilities will transfer to the skills of the god she copies. This ability's cooldown will be increased to match the target god's ultimate ability cooldown. You may hover over a target and cancel to pre-select them, so you don't need to use the cursor on activation. And her cooldown with this is 160 seconds, scaling down to 80 seconds as you level this ability. So it's a pretty important, whenever you get the possibility to level her ultimate, do it, because the cooldown is insanely long, and once you keep adding points to the ultimate, it gets brought down drastically. So I'd always recommend leveling the ultimate whenever you can. And this is what her ultimate looks like. Obviously, in a match with a bunch of other gods, there's going to be more selections. It's kind of looks like Kali's ultimate, or Kali's passive, when you can just select anyone, but obviously we can only select Raw, so you can pre-select them. Pre-select Raw, and then you can just turn into him automatically without wasting time to try and change into him later. So I would always suggest trying to preset whoever you want to go into. I always like going and pre-selecting people who have really big team fight ultimates, kind of like Cupid, Ares, Poseidon, you know, just any big AoE damages that can turn team fights. But obviously you want to just try and keep in mind other gods' ultimates and see if their ultimate will be better in certain situations. Another important thing to know about her ultimate is that you can use it and you stay in this form for 10 seconds, but you can use the ultimate at the very last second, and then so you can technically be in that form for a little bit longer if the certain god's ultimate lasts a little bit longer. Once you get that ultimate off in like the very last second, let's say like Chiron, you can still use all 3 of his shots, but right after you're going to turn back into your regular form. Now she is one of the highest skill capping gods just because of her ultimate, because you need to know how to play every single god, and you need to know pretty much every single god's abilities, how they work together, and how their ult works. So I'd recommend just at least getting every god to Mastery 1 before trying to play her, because there could be a situation where you are in a match where you have no idea how to play any of the other gods that you're against, so you won't be really effective if you don't really know how to play anyone else. And then I want to go into what her combo is. So I like stealthing in from where they can't see me, activating my 1 so they don't hear the sound, using my 1 auto-attacking, using my 2 auto-attacking again. So this is really effective with Polynomicon just because she gets so many procs of it. So I'll do that again and kind of show you the auto attacking and procs. So use the 1, auto attack, use the 2, auto attack, and they're pretty much going to be dead when you do this late game. She can just destroy any squishy target, like any mage, assassin, hunter, she's going to just annihilate. And the reason her 1 is pretty loud, it's almost like Loki, you know, you can hear it even when she's invisible. So kind of be cautious of when you activate that so no one hears you, and then come around and do it. That's usually what I like to do. So her 2 does normally like what the high res ones in their guide is. You do your 2, then your 1. But in real life, people are gonna be, you know, just juking you and whatever once you get this on there, so you won't be able to get close enough to do your 1 after that, unless, you know, some other kind of situations happen during the match. But that's why I'd always recommend going in with your 2 so you can get the guaranteed, or sorry, going in with your 1 to get the guaranteed 2 onto them. And then the rest of your team can, you know, pummel their abilities into that target. So I just think it works better. And you can just guarantee all of your damage that way. And this is why I think her combo works so well with Polynomicon, is just because she gets those basic attacks guaranteed when she uses her 1. Then I'm going to be going over what I like to build on her and why. This is the main build that I like to do, and pretty much any game mode, especially Conquest, I like doing this a lot, and you know, even every other game mode it definitely works out. So I like going Shoes of Focus because her ultimate is on such a long cooldown that she definitely needs cooldowns, but you can definitely go Shoes of Magi and like Chronos Pendant if you just want the pen from these boots. Second item, you can go Bancroft's Talon. I just like it because it has so much magical power and lifesteal. They are nerfing this in the next patch, so just keep that in mind. I think it's going to be going up a little bit in gold, and the magical lifesteal is going down to like 15%. So Bancroft's might not be as viable as the second item. So maybe you can just push that further down in your build or just keep it as second item. Then I like to go Obsidian Shard just for the sheer magical penetration. And she just, you know, bursts really well with Obsidian Shard. And I like to go another pen option, which is Spear of Desolation. Gives some more cooldown, which helps her out, magical power and pen. And the passive's pretty nice, always is. You can also do Divine Ruin in place of this if you want to counter build any healers on the other team, but I pretty much never build Spear of Magus on her. Pretty much just stick to Divine if there's healers, Spear of Deso, and Obsidian Shard. After that, I always want to get Polynomicon. You never want to build Polynomicon second, third item, because your proc is affected by your magical power. So I'll just demonstrate that right now. Like if I only had Shoes and Poly, I'd only be proccing for 66. And that is just like literally nothing. So once I get all these items back on, I'm proccing for 447. So just never build Poly, you know, second item. It's just never a good idea. I see a lot of people doing it, but I just would never recommend it. So that's why I build Poly. And then next is obviously Rod of Tahuti. Just ramps up your magical power and gives you MP of 5. You can never go wrong with building Rod on a mage. So this is the build I like the most on her. Obviously, if you want to go something like a one-shot Morrigan where you just completely wreck and you don't really care about cooldowns, I would go something like this, Or you could even replace Bancrofts with Book of Thoth. But Poly and Soul Reaver are extremely detrimental together and just one-shots anyone. So I'll go over to this Raw. Yeah, like he's just deleted with the Soul Reaver proc, Poly proc, everything. So that's another really good option if you don't really care about cooldown. Your ult will just be on an extremely long cooldown if you go that way. And another item I would recommend a lot would be Chronos Pendant. Sometimes I don't like it as much just because it decreases my damage, but you can definitely get away with building it. So since it's so expensive, I would kind of go like choose a Magi, Bancrofts, Obsidian Shard, then either Poly or Chronos Pendant in either of these slots, and then you could do that. You would have 20% cooldown, or you could, if you just really value a cooldown, you can get Shoes of Focus and make that up to 30. And you could even replace Bancrofts with Spear of Deso, so you have a max cooldown. So that would be another good option on her, just because of if you want to always use her ultimate, just go that way. And I'll show you what her cooldown would be on her ult once this runs out. So she would have around a 50-second cooldown if you build her max cooldown on her ult, so it's pretty good. I just like building her damage. So, you know, either way. And keep in mind that you keep the leveling order of the person you change into. So let's say, let's go to level 5. Oh, or 6. So it's important to kind of really keep in mind what you are leveling and the person you're turning into. So let's say we want to turn into the Raw and we're maxing our 2. Once you turn into him, you're maxing out your Divine Light, which is pretty much useless. So it's always good to just keep in mind, you know, what you're doing, what you're leveling. In the end, if you're turning into someone and their ult really just benefits the situation, it doesn't matter as much. But sometimes, you know, if you're transforming into Thanatos and maxing your 2 and you're like, oh, why didn't the Death Scythe hit for that much? It's just because you didn't invest all your points in your 1. So just keep that in mind. And just because of this, Morrigan is the best god to play from behind. So if you guys are just getting like murdered in Conquest, Morrigan can definitely capitalize on this just because she can turn into the god who's been fed the most, and she can just gain all of their items, and she can definitely put up a good fight since she has, you know, all of their items, and she's just turning into the person that's, you know, been fed the most. So she definitely is a god to watch if she's on the other team just because of this. And there's definitely 2 different styles of builds you can build with her. Obviously, number 1 is damage, which I've shown you. And then there is a defensive option she can do, where if she's like in the solo lane or jungling, she can just be pretty tanky. So, you know, she can build things like breastplate. Let me see if I can find it. Sparrow Robe, another good one. Then you have max cooldown. She can go like Ethereal Staff, Rod, and like Obsidian Shard. She'll be pretty tanky and still do, you know, decent bits of annoying damage. So you can definitely do that, or, you know, get pen boots instead. So she can definitely be that ult bot, you know, defensive, hard to kill, annoying god, you know, so you can do things like that. Another important thing to keep in mind is if you're taking Fire Giant or a buff while you're in your ultimate.
Do our bidding.
And then I'll just show you once I run out of this ultimate. She loses the buff, which I think is a pretty bad bug, in my opinion. Because if she goes and gets Fire Giant, she won't get that buff. So definitely something to keep in mind. Another obviously important thing is just try, and if your team's trying to, get Fire Giant, Gold Fury, and none of your team has any ultimate secure, just go ahead and use your ults, go into a Raw, Thoth, Scylla, and secure that ult for your team. I would even recommend doing that with a Fire Giant just so that the other team doesn't get that buff, even though you won't get the buff either. So it's definitely win-win, lose-lose situation. I would always recommend Polly on her and just doing that one combo, just sneaking up on them, proc, use your 2, it's another proc, and then they're pretty much dead every time. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know if this has helped you at all, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!